Morning. So we're going to kind of go over the theory to practice paper feedback, and within that, this is for the 301 course. And within that, if you're in my 325, not much has really changed from both sides. But initially, just to remain in accordance, I will also provide this also with the YouTube video, and this will be uploaded and everything else. So we'll kind of go through that. We'll kind of go through the initial concerns and things that I saw within your paper writing. Without further ado, we'll continue onwards. So what is a theory to practice paper? One of the biggest things that I did come across was within this exercise, it was a little different in terms of the approach. If you notice, a lot of it has to deal with the area of educating different individuals, and within that, you're kind of coming from the angle of what thing can I provide? How can I change even my outlook? How can I even improve that? Within that, one of the biggest things I'm always looking at is the theoretical element. So for many of you, you did apply the theoretical element, and again, within the area of human sexuality, a lot of that is, there's a lot of different interpretations, and I think that's one of the biggest things is so long as you were able to provide a theory, or even if you were able to provide some element in regards to that theory, and you were able to back it up with the scholarly article, that's primarily what I was looking at. So within that, that's primarily what I was utilizing, and also, as noted in the paper itself, it's a theory to practice. So initially, you're applying it. You're applying it in the field. You're applying it here and there. You're applying it even in your own personal life, stuff like that. And so that was the initial difference. Because I think if you're taking my 325, the theory to practice paper is a little bit modified. Because for the 325, I'm asking more of how you would implement it in the community. But for the 301, it's a little different in terms of how you would implement it. And so that's one of the things I was always looking at. And again, it is labeled in your assignment itself, and it kind of breaks it down for that in the assignment, whether it be on the PowerPoint or whether it be even on the assignment window. So again, that's where I urge each of you to look at those assignments. Look at the initial resources that are available to you. And if you did not, and you still simply thought you could wing it, it probably is reflected in your grade. And that's where I kind of indicated that within your grading and everything else. And if you notice, this grading is a little different in terms of presentation. And again, one of the biggest things I was always looking at is also how your interpretation is. What is your voice? And that's what I was looking at as well. And that's primarily what I was always, that's pretty much what I was grading on as well. In addition to that, for your major assignments, again, they're a little more rigorous than your discussion questions. Discussion questions are a little bit of leeway, but for your major assignments, I'm asking a little more. I'm asking a little more in terms of presentation. I'm asking a little more in terms of what things you're going to be able to present to me. And so that's the reason why I'm a big stickler on various areas, and that's why I initially am looking at those things. And so that's one of the things I'm always looking at. Because again, this is a 300 level course. Within that, I am asking a little more. So within that, that's the reason why I graded the way I graded. Again, I try to remain as transparent as possible as well. You have the grading rubric when you log in. When you look at your assignments, you have the grading rubric there. And again, when that is available, look at them. Look at what I'm initially looking at. A lot of it is not a mystery. I literally do go off of that grading rubric, and if things are missing, that's what I'm going off of. So again, that's primarily initially what I'm overall interpreting. So in order to think through the helping people and processes in the field of human sexuality, you will write a short page paper. Again, you're defining and discussing one of the theories of human sexuality from the class readings, as well as you're discussing how this is viewed today versus how it may have been viewed prior, and you're finding one place or opportunity that you think exists that you could volunteer or work at that would help solve this problem in any small or large way that aligns with your theory of human sexuality, and defend this section. Again, the 2-page paper, I am looking at that. Some students only submitted a page and a half. Again, you also have to look at the other element of if you were 2 or 3 lines less than the full page, you got points deducted. If you were 2 or 3 lines over, you got points deducted. The reason why is I was trying to remain as transparent as possible, and that's why I really tried to stress that time and time again, both in the PowerPoints previous and also in the assignments, that it is a 2-page. It has to be 2 pages, exactly 2 pages. And so that's one of the things that you probably found in your papers. Even if you went over a whole page, I wasn't asking for anything more than 2 pages. So bear that in mind. I was looking at whether or not you would interpret the information as given, or if you're going to go in your own direction. If you went in your own direction, that was reflected in your grade. So that's one of the things I kind of had to reiterate time and time again. So by defend, I mean add additional scholarly support. And the reason why I'm asking for only 2 articles, again, it was only 2 articles. I wasn't asking for 3 or 4 additional articles. I was only asking for 2. Because one of the things I came across is some students were using .com, .org, or .edu websites. One of the biggest things is I want you to use peer-reviewed articles. Again, there's tons and tons of articles. There's tons of studies out there. And that's where you're trying to search for. That's the reason why I asked you to do a search for a lot of things that you're going to be looking at. Because, again, you possibly even got points deducted for that. You only got, say, for example, if you added a website and you also added a scholarly source, the way I was grading was it had to have 2 scholarly peer-reviewed articles. And, again, it's stated within your assignment. Some of you used a textbook, which is great, but you still, and I did reiterate that again, that you still have to have 2 scholarly peer-reviewed articles to support it. You can use a textbook, that's great, but you're still going to have to find 2 additional articles. So that's pretty much what I was looking at, and that's where some students kind of initially did not indicate that. So that's kind of what I was looking at. And so again, like as noted, it is specified in your assignments and it's specified in your instructions and everything else. So I cannot, I could not stress that enough, and that's one of the things I did come across. Formatting. The body of written work of applying 2 pages. Bear in mind that it did need a title page as well as an abstract and also a reference page. So each of these need to be applied. And again, I would say almost everybody did apply a title page and a reference page as well as an abstract. And so that was pretty good. But bear in mind that for some, the abstract went a little long. Bear in mind it's only supposed to be 250 words or even less. So again, you're just sharing the insight. Because again, this is not counted within your 2 pages. So again, here it also has do not use .com, .org, or .net sites for your sources. So again, it still needed 2 scholarly references need to be applied to this paper. And so again, this needs to be a scholarly resource article. So within that, that's one of the things I had to stress time and time again. And for some, you were having to change possibly even your initial outlook. And again, that's what initially is happening is you may have a great idea, but no research had been done or had been conducted in that area. And so that's where you're trying to remodify it. And if you don't have any research, then you're having to try to remodify it. And maybe for when you're getting your doctorate or even when you're getting your master's degree, you can begin to look at those things. So that's one of the things is at this time in your undergrad years, you're primarily just using a lot of research to practice papers, so things that have already been conducted already. So that's kind of one of the processes that you're initially going through. So that's the reason why I don't necessarily need you to do actual research, because if you do, you have to go through the IRB and everything else. But again, it's one of those things where you're looking at articles that had already been collected. And I didn't give an initial time frame. So again, that gave you a little more freedom of choosing various articles here and there, so long as they were scholarly resource articles. So again, that's what I was looking at, because again, I did look at those articles. I had to research some of the articles and look up some of the articles itself and find some of the articles. And then also the other thing is some of the articles that were proffered or that were provided, bear in mind that all of that, the formatting, everything else is so crucial. And the reason why it's so crucial is when I look out for a lot of those articles and it's not coming up, that will impact it, because again, if it's not coming up and you mislabeled it or you misrepresented it, again, that's going to impact how I'm going to find it. So that's one of the things is I will just simply select the whole selection, or I will use the DOI, or I will simply use the title, or I will use the authors, And for some it came up, for some it did not. But again, that's where I indicated even in your notes, indicating this is not coming up, or did you utilize the correct title? Again, those things all matter, and that's the reason why you're having to utilize that. Because say for example, if this was a general layperson in terms of reading the paper, and they came across this paper, and they're putting in the input, or they're putting in the information that you've provided, and it's not coming up, you're not really going to change their insight, because initially they're looking at it saying, I can't find the information that this individual has utilized. So again, that's the reason why it's so crucial to apply a lot of the different referencing elements. Again, you have the APA formatting, PowerPoint. If you have any questions even about that, we can go over them, and that's fine. That's one of the things I want you to have a good... again, there's been some modifications. There's been some modifications in terms of the edition. We are now utilizing the 7th edition versus the 6th edition. So again, there's been slight modifications here and there. So that's one of the things we're trying to transition everybody to do and to utilize again. And so it's one of those things where for some students, you've gotten so used to the previous utilization of APA, the 6th edition. In addition to that, the other thing that I am coming across is some are using still MLA, as well as Vancouver, as well as Chicago styling formatting. You're using APA format, as well as you're also using AMA, the American Medical Association. So again, all these different referencings are different, but what you're looking at is APA. The reason why you're using APA is because a lot of these courses are psychology courses. Therefore, you're trying to stay within that format. If you're taking a different course and it's a medical course, you would use AMA. But for a majority of the work that you're applying within this field, it's all psychology. Therefore, you're using APA. So again, that's where I had to really stress that. So moving forward. So the formatting, double space, 1-inch margin, 12-point font. A lot of you guys stayed within this format. You number the pages, 2-page maximum of written work. Again, that it does stress that there. This PowerPoint was provided to you as well. 2 pages of maximum work, of written work. Anything less, points were deducted. Anything more, points were deducted. So you're really having to stay within that initial sweet spot. So you're trying to stay within that window. And so within that, that's one of the things I was looking at, is I wanted to see if you could stay within that window and sharing your insight. And I know sometimes you were frustrated, and some of you thought this was an easy assignment. And now that you've seen your grade, you're probably wondering, oh my gosh, this is a little harder than I thought. And for others, you knocked it out of the park. Initially, you presented your ideas succinctly, you shared your insight, and you had a great introduction, and you had a great conclusion. So that's one of the things that I was looking at, is are you able to present it in a meaningful way? Is it meaningful to you? Again, for others, you went on a whole other element, and so that's one of the things that I really want to stress, is staying within the various guidelines. Again, this is still a writing assignment, and so that's one of the things we're really looking at, that I'm really looking at. So again, that's one of the things with the formatting. So this is not a work in fantasy or wonderment. Again, a lot of the things that we're pulling from is actual research, things that had been done before or things that had been studied. If you look to the left, you'll find that is a full-page paper all the way to the end. If you look to the right, that is half a page, and that's where I had to really stress that. I've had students still submit a page and a half. If you did, you lost points for that. Even if you missed it by 1 or 2 sentences, again, that's what I was looking at. So again, that's one of the things I was initially really bearing into. For your 3 to 4 page research paper that's due later on, that one I'm only looking at 3 to 4 pages. So again, there's that leeway. But for this one, I wanted to see if you could remain as succinct as possible and as accurate as possible within the various guidelines. So again, that's one of the things you possibly even lost points on. So that's where the instructions really mattered. Again, that's one of the things I had to really initiate. So page 1, one of the things, many of you did apply a title, and I was proud of you, honestly. I was proud of you because, one, you were able to get out of your comfort zone, you were able to find a title, you were able to look up some things, and you were able to proffer something that related to the initial research that you've conducted. And that's one of the things that you're looking at, is you want to make sure that you're original in your title, you want to make sure that you're applying a title. Many of you did put your name, which is great. That's always a crucial thing, that you want to put your name. And so even in addition to that, make sure you get your instructor's name right. It's one of those key elements that you want to try to do. If you did not, again, you can go into Blackboard and you will find my name there. It's always good to kind of get the professor's name right. It's always good. So it's one of those things. And I think I did go over that in one of my PowerPoints about the crucial elements of ensuring that you get the individual's name right. If you're working in a counseling field, you want to make sure that you're getting your patient's name right. You want to make sure you're getting your client's name right, stuff like that. So again, it just simply comes down to that, making sure that you're focusing in on the details. So again, that's one of the things I'm looking at. Let's see, moving forward. Abstract. A lot of you did indicate abstract, which was great. You also offered the keywords, which was great as well. You also offered, again, these are the various elements that you're looking at within the abstract. You want to make sure that it is below 250 words. You're making sure that you're offering a keywords, everything else. So say, for example, if you're doing a major research study, you want to make sure you're applying these keywords, so that if I'm looking for research in your field, that's where I would find a lot of your keywords. So the body of writing, what it contained. Again, your body of writing should have been another page, and that's where you're kind of breaking everything down. You're offering a description, how you would plan to assess the solution you propose. Again, you're looking at all these different elements. You're applying all these different elements within your two-page paper. And again, that's where you're having to really be selective. And that's one of the things is a lot of your writing, you want to make sure that you're being selective. You can tell a whole story, but if it doesn't tie into what initially is being proffered, then it's not useful. And that's where I kind of noted that in some of your writing. Some of it is great. Some of it is great penmanship or a great typing ship, I guess. I don't know how to put that. But it's word processing, I guess that would be the word. So again, it was great, but again, there was more of the storytelling, and the aspect of generating the initial scholarly aspect was not really applied. And so that's where I kind of had to reiterate that even within your writing, and that's where I left a lot of the notes here and there. So again, look over those papers, because you will have a research paper coming up within the second half of the initial semester. So within that, you're going to be looking at various things again. Again, for the research paper, there's a little more leeway in terms of that. Because it is a 3 to 4 page paper, so I'm wanting to learn more about what initial outlook that you're wanting to look at. Again, that's one of the things, and we will cover that as time progresses to make sure that you're staying in line with that. So that's one of the things I was initially looking at. In addition to that, one of the other things that I was kind of coming across is the element of in-text citation and referencing. Whenever you add an in-text citation, make sure you're using the author, date. If you're adding a page number, that's only primarily utilized when you're using a direct quote. So that's where in your notes you'll probably find that. And a lot of you didn't lose points for that, but you lost points because you got the author's name wrong, or you didn't apply an author's name, or you didn't apply even the date, or you didn't paraphrase, or even if you were paraphrasing, you didn't apply anything to it, and that's where I would kind of indicate that. In addition to that, I'm noticing that within your in-text citation, within the new rules of APA, again, it's not new, but it is applied. If you have 3 or more authors, bear in mind you're going to be using et al, in other words, ETAL, period, after the initial lead author. And so that's where you're applying that within the in-text citation. For the referencing, that's where you're listing all of the authors. Don't abbreviate don't try to do the ... after if there are more than 5 authors. You have to indicate all the authors. I believe it goes up to 20 authors if there are 20 authors. And again, that's where you're looking at all those different things. In addition to that, some of the areas that I was kind of noticing was the element of the in-text citation, in that when you were using direct quotes, we call it a block citation. So a block citation, hopefully it was covered at some point within your other courses, but if not, that's where this one was kind of a learning curve for a lot of you. That's where you were applying the block citation. I think I need to go over that again, even with another PowerPoint. And within that, one of the things that I'm looking at for a block citation is if it's 40 words or more, you would put it into a block citation. So the whole portion that you've quoted, it would move over 0.5 in your writing, and that's where you would indicate it with the in-text citation at the bottom, the date, the name, the author's name, the date, and also the page number. In addition to that, I cannot stress this enough, do not use the first names in your in-text citation. You're only using the last names. In addition, don't put the titles like a PhD, PsyD, MD, stuff like that. You're not applying that because primarily at this point, most individuals in the field already know they have a PhD. And so within that, that's where it would also be noted even in their initial articles. So within that, you're not necessarily putting the titles. So bear that in mind. So initially, that's what I kind of looked at, and that's what I was also grading on, as well as presentation and everything else in terms of your voice. That's what I was always looking at too, and also making sure that it had a cohesive element, that the writing was not choppy. Bear that in mind that you want to make sure that the whole thing has flow, so that you're able to see what is happening next. And so that's one of the things I'm kind of initially looking at. So the reference page on its own as well, you should have a separate reference page, and I believe most of you did do that. You're also looking at this. Make sure that you're looking at this. So again, you have an indented second line, and I know some of you are using the uses of the APA on Word. You're using that little tool. I would advise you to move away from that, because again, what happens is I'm noticing that some of it is wrong. That majority that have used that little tool, the referencing is off, because again, it's going by different elements, and sometimes it's not updated as well. So I would advise just to simply go off of the APA formatting guide PowerPoint that I did proffer in your resource element, and just go off of that. If you have any questions, also go to Purdue OWL, and I believe I did leave a link, and that's also applied. So again, you're just going to look up Purdue OWL, and that should go to APA referencing and stuff like that. And so within that, the APA referencing, make sure that you're implementing everything. If you're using a TV show, bear in mind that there's also formatting for that. If you're using a direct show from popular media, stuff like that, you want to make sure that you're utilizing that. So I did leave notes on that. If you're going to use a TV show in your referencing, if you're going to use different elements, again, one of the things is that would be the additional elements, or the additional feature, in that if you use a TV show, you still need the two scholarly references. So if you're saying, did he just allow students to use TV shows and everything else to defend themselves? No, because again, that would be the additional to the two articles that were supplied. So again, for some, they were adding 3, 4, 5 references to kind of round out their paper, and if you did, I commend you for that, because again, you were going above and beyond. But in addition to that, you had to make sure that you're also staying in line with the various elements of the referencing. And if you did add 3 or 4, I was looking at the two articles that were proffered, and if there was only one article that was proffered, but you added 3 or 4 different additional references that were not scholarly, you still lost points, because again, it was not 2 scholarly articles as noted in the instructions. So again, that's one of the things I was looking at. So I would say a lot of you did apply your scholarly references, which is great. And so a lot of them, I did look up a lot of them to make sure that they were in line. And I also left notes in terms of how it should be formatted and everything else. And if it was not formatted accordingly, you lost points for that, because again, you also have the APA formatting PowerPoint. So that's where initially I really urge you to look at that PowerPoint and kind of go over it. For some of you, you use personal communications in addition to the 2 scholarly articles. If you use personal communications, there's also a little portion in the APA formatting PowerPoint, which kind of goes over that, so it allows you to kind of see how to apply a personal communication, whether it's grandma or whether it's another medicine man or a traditional practitioner or a faith-based practitioner, stuff like that. Again, you had all these different elements that if you were using that, that's where you would indicate the personal communication. So again, a lot of you did do that, and it was amazing and everything else. But as we continue onwards, I just want to reiterate the fact that you want to make sure that your references are accurate. If you were to say, for example, present this, you have individuals who are interested in your work, and suddenly they're looking for a lot of these articles and they can't find it based upon the referencing, they're going to lose interest. And so that's one of the things, or either that, or they'll call you on it and say, hey, you misspelled this, you misspelled that, or you misspelled the last name, and everything else. So that's kind of one of the things that I was always looking at, is you want to make sure that you're staying in line with what you're presenting and everything else. So again, those are the various components. I know this was kind of lengthy, a 25-minute video, and I'm trying to remain as short as possible within this videos. So again, that was kind of initially. So most have been graded. I'm still grading through some of them. So bear in mind that I'm still giving notes in here and there. So if you have not received it yet, do not worry. I'm still grading through them. So that's one of the things I just want to make sure that when I grade them, I'm reading them and also making sure that I apply the various notes to kind of give you some feedback and to kind of give you that, hopefully that added edge, so that when you're writing your research paper, it comes across as presentable but also insightful. And so if you have any questions, please let me know. So that's one of the things is, if you did submit it and it is in your box and you indicate that it is there and it has not been graded yet, don't worry. That means I can see it. It's just I haven't got to it yet. So that's one of the things is I am still grading through them. So that's one of the things that does take time to try to make sure that I grade accurately and everything else. So that's one of the things is just give me time to initially go through them. And within that, you'll get your paperback with some notes. And so hopefully that helps and everything else. Bear in mind that, and this is kind of just a reminder, you have your various quizzes coming up. You have another quiz coming up. And within that, so hopefully that helps. Midterm is also looming, so that is going to be the midterm quiz, so do bear that in mind, so don't forget about that. So hopefully you guys have an awesome day. Be safe, be awesome, be amazing, go change the world.